ass iPhone that's connected wirelessly to the
Oh,
network, but somehow my wired computer dropped off the network for whatever reason.
weird.
This is one of those times where it's like, do I have to like go through and update literally everything again? Why? Why? Like there are only so many. How frequently do I have to keep this thing updated? It's set to automatically update. Even the
Yeah,
even
it says we're back.
the
Yeah.
Dell Assistant is set to automatically update. Why isn't it doing that for me? Is it like is it fucking up my system because I refuse to update to Windows 11 25H2?
I think that might be happening
These
actually.
they're bullshit. Like
Um, in that I have three machines. Two of them are Windows 10. One of them is Windows 11, not by my choice, and it was on accident. All of them had the virtual memory reset to automatically manage it and have the computer manage it instead of the um, values that I had originally set. And so after realizing this and changing the virtual memory, all of my machines started working in real time. And whereas before, two of them had started to lag in a way where one, it was very perceptible. And if I had just started my machine and the cache was clear, it would run pretty fast. But the longer it stayed on, the slower it got. And the other one, it was just like a general latency that was perceptible enough to be like noticeable, but not bad enough for me to go in and try to look under the hood and figure out if anything's actually wrong. And so once I figured this out on the other machine, which didn't have any problems, it was just something where I went in and I was messing with it just to, I noticed that the memory usage was high, but it wasn't high enough. It was like, I think it was at like 33%. And I'm like, that doesn't seem right. Like that it shouldn't be that high. And so once then I realized that the virtual memory had been put to auto, then I'm like, these motherfuckers went in and did that shit because I would like, that's one of those things that anytime I'm setting up a computer, it's like the sixth or seventh thing that I do when I'm setting up a computer just to make sure that it runs fast. So it's like I'm always aware of making sure that the virtual memory has enough set aside so that the computer doesn't run slowly. But then to have all of them turned back on automatic, that's when I'm like, oh, fucking Windows is trying to make everybody think that their computers are running like shit, so they go buy a new computer and force them to either upgrade or in the software to Windows 11 or just go buy a new computer altogether. And then seeing that, I know I'm just one of the people who's fortunate enough to catch it, but it's gonna work on a significant amount of older people as to where they're just gonna go out and buy a new computer. And it's like, I mean, and I'll rephrase that. In the past, it would have worked, but I don't know if people have enough capital to do that, and especially in tandem with the jacked up computer prices, I don't know if that's actually going to happen. So it may be one of those things that has an unintended outcome of those people actually holding on to their devices longer and figuring out, mainly because it's such a simple fix, how to go in and I'll say maybe like one out of two people has someone in their family who they'll be able to ask to figure it out. And then maybe like one out of five people might have the motivation to actually figure it out themselves. And then right there, they've like lost a good chunk, 60% of their cycle market that is willing to buy a new device when they have the planned obsolescence kicked in. But it's one of those things where everyone knows about planned obsolescence at this point. It's more so when corporations try to lean on it for their models, and Microsoft has clearly turned to this model with their software and by proxy the hardware that it's attached to. But I don't know if capitalism has the actual capital to keep up the consumer side, and for any brand, let alone for a high value item like a computer.
Why is Chrome using so much fucking memory? It's not even doing anything.
Well, and then does it have AdBlock Plus on there? Because I realized AdBlock Plus specifically was eating up a shitload of fucking CPU. They're probably mining cryptocurrency or something stupid. And so once I deleted AdBlock Plus, my CPU lost like 25% of the usage, if
No,
not more.
I don't have AdBlock Plus. Um, it's not even like nothing's even open. It's like a freaking blank Google search page. Why is it consuming so much memory? Are these extensions really using that much energy? What the?
Right, the bloat is real, and it's terrible. Um, I I've been using Edge for a while, which is effectively Chrome minus most of the bloat. Um, which, you know, Edge has started to suck lately too. But even then, it's like I have two, four, five tabs open, and it's only using like 9% of my CPU, which is like if you have one tab, not even an actual tab open with Chrome, it's just destroying your CPU.
Yeah, just running Chrome right out the gate consumes. It looks like 380 megabytes of RAM right out the gate. Just one tab. Just- yeah, one doing nothing tab is consuming 400 megabytes of GPU process time and 200 megabytes of memory just to run the browser. And there's a bunch of renderers that are negligible. So I just learned that Shift Escape opens up the Chrome Task Manager, which tells you what the tabs and the extensions are all doing.
Oh, it works in Edge too, apparently.
Yeah, well, this must be like a WebKit level thing. Huh. Well, now I know what's consuming memory. Why the hell is Google Docs doing anything right now?
Okay, so this whole Venezuelan thing is hilarious to me for a bunch of reasons. Um, one of the many reasons is the various language that the different news outlets are using, where some outlets are saying capture versus Al Jazeera is using the proper term in abduct. And
I've also read apprehended.
right, they're trying to make it seem like he was a criminal on the in the US news framing. It's happening on multiple sides. Um, but what I thought was hilarious is Fox News has already started to basically distance themselves from the actions through other people. And like they're even quoting Kamala Harris about it, which I'm like,
Oh boy.
when's the last time fucking Fox News was quoting Kamala Harris except for the election, which is the way
I've
that they
actually forgotten about her.
exactly, bro. Exactly. Everybody has because she just basically went and retired to her fucking mansion and was like, yeah, I got my fucking money for running and I'm done. But like now apparently she came out and said something against the Venezuelan poor attempt for a coup. Like I don't even know, this is like Austin Powers comedy level coup where they thought that they were doing something, and in the process, all they were doing was making Maduro into an icon and a fucking he's not a martyr yet, and I don't know if they'll be stupid enough to make him a martyr. But if they martyr, prison. I mean, I think they'll try. But here's the issue: Maduro just played them like a fucking fiddle, because when they're doing this same type of threat to Denmark, and Europe's stability is under threat from the United States, because they've been pulling this bullshit in Denmark and haven't been hiding it and haven't been coy about it. So for them to be this brazen and try to overturn the sovereignty of a country and then to impose a narco like charge as if drug traffickers are under the direction of the government, not only is that some major projection, it's one of those things that in the international sphere, they've just destroyed any sort of semblance of United States being able to be trusted as a superpower. And in the process, they've made it so that anybody in Europe besides Keir Starmer is going to question any sort of association. And those dumbasses are already separated from the EU in the first place. So it was like, nobody's surprised by Britain being far right fucking Nazi wing in 2026 and like siding with Trump. But let's be clear, Britain is falling apart because of the right wing policy, and they're trying to make it seem like they're not falling apart. So in that same siding with Trump, it's like these are all of the signs of a crumbling and declining Western empire. And in the process, in trying to perp walk Maduro, they're basically threatening every other sovereign leader. And that's not going to stand. It's one of those things that in the process, not only did they've done the farthest thing from topple the Venezuelan government. They've effectively activated the Venezuelan population as a de facto militia, as the Venezuelan government has started arming the people against the military. And so if like Hamas doesn't have a state, and there's like 9 million people in Pakistan, and they haven't been able to beat them with the entire Israeli army and American supplement to help, there's no fucking way that the United States is doing anything in Venezuela against a population of 30 million that's now armed and also very hostile against colonization. Like they're not about to be Hong Kong and be like, come on in, Britain, come on in, welcome. We need your white asses to lead us. That's not even remotely happening, to the point that I think Argentina is literally the only country that sided with America. But we already know they got a bunch of fucking Nazis down there that they hid. So that's not a surprise at all for those white wannabe Argentinians to side with America. That's not a surprise. So at this point, all of the, like, we haven't even had a week play out yet. And so all of the European countries have already basically like thrown up the red flag and been like, this shit can't, it's not going to fly over here. And so that whole threat to Denmark is now actually something that they will be taking seriously in a way that before, I think he overplayed his hand. And if he had like done this in Denmark first, it would have caught them off guard. And then they would have had to deal with the fallout from that. But now that he did this in Venezuela first, they're prepared for an actual hostile takeover in Denmark. Whereas before, I think Europe thought that it was a joke and that the threat of like America coming in and actually executing a military takeover of Denmark was just like the ramblings of a senile old man. But now that like this has happened, which again, let's be clear, the way it went down, it's like they obviously baited the United States into following their path, because then they got captured, nobody died, and then that means that he ordered his people not to fire on individuals and kill them, because it's like all you got to do is like shoot a couple rockets, and right there, that's an easy way to like at least demoralize the enemy in a way where if there's no American casualties and there's no Venezuelan casualties, that was a trap. That was bait that United States took, and they didn't realize was bait because they're not that smart. And I think when we're dealing with like brutalists, it's easy to assume a higher level of intelligence than actually exists when the actual use of brute force suggests the opposite. And so when they're executing such brute force tactics in order to attempt to solve an economic problem so obviously and in such a way where it's like they're the ones saying it's about the oil.
I thought it was about cocaine.
Well, but there's not enough time to make the oil, to take the oil and make the oil useful in a way to save the gap that they have. And this is also where this is kind of distracted from the AI bubble discussion. Like, it almost feels like now all the AI fucking bros are breathing a sigh of relief because the hot seat has moved and like the news isn't focused on them. But make no mistake, AI is in a much worse state than before, in a way where now that the quarterly report, like the yearly reports are coming in and the quarterly reports are coming in and nobody's made a profit. Also, I don't think it's a coincidence that Klarna switched to a bunch of AI in their company, and then people started abusing the Klarna app in a way that at first I was like, man, is the CIA trying to get people to use Klarna and like to get people to commit wire fraud and get themselves put in prison into the prison slavery system? And I'm like, man, the CIA is moving real crazy right now. But then you realize that Klarna had like adopted AI uh, agents into a lot of their process, which is, you know, it's opaque. So it's not clear. Like, I'm sure they're
Okay,
using
just
AI
on a
coders.
side note, the idea of public-facing agentic AIs interacting directly with random people entering prompts, just that's terrifying to me. Like it's completely possible for somebody with absolutely zero skill or zero ability to even think just like 2 or 3 steps ahead to create software with an agentic system that does things they would never understand under the hood. It's that shit just blows my mind how they just like the AI industry is like open the doors. Hey, everyone, come grab an agentic AI and do what you want. You don't even need to know anything. Like you have to tell the agent to incorporate security protocols. And we it's I don't know, man. Just that's just terrifying to me. Hey, AI agent, go do this thing.
Well, and then the examples that they're giving are like, you can have AI order you a burrito. And I'm like, what the fuck kind of low bar are they setting for trying to get people to implement AI into their lives at this point? Because if someone needs artificial intelligence to order food for them, like what are they even what does that person even live for? Like
That's a full grown child.
yeah, which I think a lot of those exist. So it's not to say that
I'm a very I
adult children.
hey I have no kids. I love embracing Peter Pan in that level of like I'm not going to grow up. I'm going to stay young forever. But I realize, of course, my body's not going to do that. But at the same time, I'm not going to ask an AI to go do something that takes me like a couple of minutes. I can do that my damn self. That's a whole new level of enabling laziness. I think part of the point of learning how
Well,
to
and
code
even
is that you develop one develops logic and is able to see frameworks and explain things in a way that makes sense and then translate that into some kind of algorithm that does something. But blindly just asking for something and then getting something that it does it. It might do it. It might do it well enough to fool the person asking the machine to do the thing for them. And I'm not talking about purpose-driven, like locally developed. It's an expert system that only does like biopharma research or something. That I can see how that would actually make a lot of sense. But having something that's supposed to access the sum totality of human knowledge and information and then spit out something concise, that's like crazy to me. And I sound like a technophobe right now.
I mean, I think it doesn't it only sounds technophobic if one believes that like everything that is technological is good, and that's obviously not true.
Yeah.
But also, the problem is inherently that the AI is not working and that they're claiming things that aren't coming true and that they keep moving the bar for AGI and they keep moving the bar for when they say it's going to take the jobs. And when it takes the jobs, it doesn't do them well enough. And then they have to hire humans back. So it's like we're not getting the stories about these companies having to hire humans back when the statistics are saying that all like 95 literally 95% of the companies that tried AI experiments and lost or fired humans in the process are now having to go back and either relocate or hire humans that they fired. Because also, what other companies were doing is they weren't actually firing people, they were just relocating them in other part of their company and then saying that like AI is being integrated in more of the company and it's reducing their workforce,
That
but
just
in
sounds like
specific areas.
an excuse to lay people off.
I mean, that's
or a mechanism to
there,
do it
but
without
these
changing
companies weren't
themselves.
laying people off. Is my point? Is they're saying that they're laying people off to make it seem like they're becoming more efficient to increase their stock price. They're not even actually laying
Oh,
people off. Is my
that's
point,
the Bain
because the
Capital
AI
method.
wasn't. But the AI wasn't working good enough for them to actually lay the people off. Is the point? So they would like move them to a different department, give them a different title, and then say that they're integrating AI and it's reducing their like their employee count, but it's actually not, and they're just lying about it to make it seem like they're technologically advanced so they don't seem like technophobes, because of FOMO basically driving company value at this point. And it's like the fear of not having AI and the fear of losing investment to other companies that are having like integrating AI, as to why a lot of these companies are saying that they're integrating AI, but not even actually doing it. And it's the same shit that happened with blockchain. So it's like seeing the same type. Like, do you remember when that ice tea company was like ice tea blockchain and their fucking stock price shot up?
Yeah.
That was like peak meme blockchain stock adding to a company name. But then the same shit is happening with AI,
They were
and we're already
called.
past the
It was
peak.
the Long Island Iced Tea Corp.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
long
Perfect.
Long Blockchain is the
Exactly.
name of the company now.
So that was peak adding blockchain to the name to make it seem like, because they didn't even have a fucking blockchain or add a blockchain anywhere. They just literally added it to the name, which was why it became a story. And so when companies are effectively doing that, but then masking it to make it seem like that's not what's happening, that is also part of the story that is not being expressed in the mainstream media, because the mainstream media pitched the AI in the first place, so they can't come back and point at themselves and be like, this was sold as a lie. So all of the stories have to kind of work around that part of the narrative in which the media played a part in the first place. So I think that's why when we're seeing these Gartner hype cycles play out, it perpetually feels like we're at the peak when we know we're past the peak, but it still feels like we're at the peak because of the media and because of the way the media is portraying it. Is the same shit that happened with NFTs, and then suddenly they were just gone and they
So
just disappeared.
there's a blockchain that is designed to combat counterfeit Parmesan cheese and to certify other cheeses. Um, Spinoza is an Italian dairy company that launched blockchain certification for cheese.
Oh my God. Denmark urges respect after Trump's aide wife posts on Greenland
Ugh.
51 minutes ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew it was only a matter of time before Denmark came out and was like, yeah, don't invade our shit.
Man, Stephen Miller and his. I remember during the first administration, like she like said something. She like yelled at somebody while boarding a private plane about how she pays more in taxes every year than like. It was real wild. It's like an anti-virtue signal.
Well, the United States is becoming everything that they has said was bad about Russia in real time. And when it happens at such a visible level, like how do I say this? That's when people start fighting back. And I think it's one of those issues that going into 2026 and having the first thing basically be like the Venezuelan population is not set to become a colony of the United States. And then they installed. Okay, this is another part. The vice president that they installed made it to Russia. So she's like in Russia, which Maduro could have done in the first place. Like he could have just fled to Russia and hid there for like a month and then wait until the United States' attention gets turned elsewhere and then go back to Venezuela and then go back to Russia and play that cat and mouse game. But he didn't do that. Meanwhile, the actual vice president is doing that in a way that if they were able to get her to Russia without getting her transport destroyed, that is, there was some like deception. It feels like the bait and switch happened where they thought like Maduro was the target when she was the actual one, because if you take out Maduro, that's who they're going to install next, where it's like if you're trying to actually coup, you have to take out basically all of the leadership, including the military leadership. And so the military leadership is fine. The vice president is in Russia, fine. There hasn't actually been a change in leadership to the point that now they're trying to be like, we don't recognize the validity of the new leadership. When it's like, well, you didn't recognize the validity of the old leadership, so what's changed actually? Nothing. And so in right now, nothing politically has changed, but the United States rhetoric is making it seem like everything is over, down to when this happened in Iraq, they actually had congressional approval. And so starting a fight with Congress before the midterm elections, that's not going to end the way that they think it's going to end. I can guarantee that, in that Fox News has already started to split the rhetoric and is not 100% supporting Trump.
You know, they've been distancing themselves from Trump for the past few months, anyways. It's been really wild. I've been saying for the past couple weeks, actually, like my feed has become increasingly diverse, and it's actually really interesting. It seems like there's a lot of dissent from everyone. Everyone's mad. Like the whole country is big mad about different things too. The only thing that I don't see in the feed is anything about Elon right now.
Yeah, he's done a pretty good job about trying to remove himself from the discussion.
Like I haven't even seen any interviews with him or like even the reels and the shorts that usually pop up with him and Joe Rogan blurting out some random crap. That stuff's even hasn't been appearing in my feed either.
I think the last time it was when Optimus got exposed as being an obviously remote controlled
Man,
and not autonomous bot, when it took off the helmet and fell over. That was amazing.
Meanwhile, China just demoed a new security droid. And I'm going to call it a droid because it looked like a Star Wars droid. But he was walking around. It was wearing, and the cool part was wearing tennis shoes, presumably because that thing can run, like straight up chase things down. They've already got walking security droids. I watched a video of a human sparring with robots in China, and a human can handle,
those were definitely remote controlled though.
Yeah, well, I think the idea though is that like a human can easily handle a swarm of like maybe 5 of these small robots, but as soon as they start like piling on, it becomes kind of an issue. And as soon as a human has to tangle with a human-sized robot, it's actually an issue. And that was real weird, like to watch, because like, the guy could easily kick or grab one of the small robots and toss it around, and but the full-size robot, it would just like punch him, and it has so much mass that the guy couldn't deflect it or absorb. It was real weird. also the robot didn't use like a conventional fighting style that I could identify. It was like robot foo or something.
Well, and that's part of it too. Is like you can't use conventional techniques that work on humans against something that has a gyro in it. So
Yeah,
you have to like do something else.
yeah, we're gonna have to start
And
developing electromagnetic attacks or something.
I mean, I don't even think it has to be that complex. Like just wear a fucking magnetic bracelet or something.
Yeah.
Like it can be that simple as
I
to like
wonder if those things are
use
impervious
a
to like a
gyroscope.
stun gun, like not
No,
a
there's no
taser,
way.
but like yeah, and that's what I mean. Like
No, there's no way.
50,000 volts would probably shut down whatever local motors are within.
Right, which again, that's technically a low tech solution.
Yeah,
Um, which yeah, it works on human nervous systems right there. It's gonna work on camera. It's gonna work on sensors. Like,
yeah. I
um,
wonder about that textured paint that does like the rock texture. I bet that stuff
oh
would
yeah,
really
that's
fuck those things
of
up.
course, yeah, that's exactly
Start
that's the
grinding.
type of thing where I'm like, what paint filled water balloons would be like the biggest threat to a robot army, and it would be like so low tech that I don't.
Man, we should probably be quiet. They're gonna start banning paintball guns.
I mean, this it's funny because it's one of like there are kits that are out there or like um zines that are made to like get people low tech solutions to fighting back against autonomous
They're called
or
robo rounds and they already exist. They're paintballs.
right. Yeah,
Electronically
exactly.
disruptive payload.
Exactly. But it's funny in that like yeah, these solutions aren't it don't take a fucking rocket appliance to figure this shit out. Like if you just sit if a person with even two brain cells to rub together just sits for a second, they can figure out low tech ways to take down something that relies on sensors. Like if it has sonic sensors, actually turning up music really loud is gonna fuck up its potential to map a landscape or like multiple songs at once. Like there's different things that wouldn't necessarily disorient a human as much as it would disorient a robot that is using sensors to operate and using algorithms to deconstruct what the data that's coming through those sensors. And so that's where I'm looking at these robots and they're always going to be subject to these same vulnerabilities. Like the only way that they can not be subject to them is to put backups, and those backups are going to be subject to a different type of vulnerability. So it's a matter of like,
They'd have to be hardened with some kind of really serious Faraday cage of some sort.
but then you wouldn't be able to have signals. So then it would be
Yeah.
only restricted to like its local CPU, which could then be still overloaded within a Faraday cage. So there's all these things actually about like if something has limited processing, overloading its senses is basically giving it a seizure. Like you can give a CPU a seizure the same way Chrome does. You know what I mean? And it's just a matter of like if it's a flashbang or if it's uh a bunch of LED flashes or something like that, like at rapid speed or something. There's ways to overload sensors that those sensors are going to be subject to. There's always going to be an upper threshold for a sensor as its limit for something, whether it's
Oh
heat
yeah,
or
sure. Just any capacitor, a capacitor of any kind has a limit, an electrical limit, and so any kind of sensor, no matter what wavelength it's designed to detect, like there are actual thresholds, like physical thresholds defined by the materials used to detect them. And it's like we can make bigger buckets, I guess, as an analogy, but even those things take up space, and they require more electricity, and they require more management. So there's like a fine line of efficiency with these things where they're designed for a certain like purpose, a certain optimized range. Like a lot of thermal sensors, there's some really big, not big. There's some high pixel count thermal sensors out there that have great resolution up close, but they suffer noise at long range. Whereas some of the smaller thermal sensors or smaller buckets, I guess I'm not sure what they're thermals. Anyways, they retain the same resolution like out to greater ranges because they can just collect more electromagnetic information. But those things are still limited by physical materials because silicon is only so good. We can only get copper to run at down to the atomic levels, to like so how many nanometers we can get copper now. But even that stuff's not being used for those processes. And I think that there's actually like a really like quickly diminishing return on how compact sensors can actually be before they just become subject to more noise. That's like the thing that I was always most interested in with photography is like how the noise translates and like on various sensor sizes and with different lenses and how we're able to see these things. And even here we are like decades into digital sensor technology, and that even now like some of the and cameras are extremely sophisticated now. Like there's still this electrical noise that just we can't get around it, and it happens at the low end of exposure, like underexposure, and it happens with overexposure. It's just like the nature of running the sensor at full tilt. I don't think that and I think a lot of that is to create a bigger optimized range where the sensor can actually do what it's designed to do, and they're not really meant to be used at the fringes of performance. But so much of our culture is let's see what we can do at the fringes of performance.
I feel like that's a hard lesson to learn because it doesn't really make intuitive sense. Like when you're using recording equipment, like you would think you want to use 100% gain, but that's not the case.
Oh yeah.
Not even remotely. But again, it's counterintuitive where in this society where you're like taught 110%.
Yeah, like well, I think a lot of that comes from the the analog era where we could push things beyond the threshold to see what happened, and if done with restraint and a little bit of taste and maybe a goal, those things could be really usable. But now that everything is functionally digitized and like the analog world exists, but it's really kind of a specialized club where like we're doing this because we want to do it the way they used to do it 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. We're going to tap into the energy of the Beatles. And like that stuff's cool, like I guess if you want to drive a classic car all the time, more power to you. I daily drive a classic car all the time. I love it. But I also, fully appreciate modern conveniences and the ability to make decisions on a granular level that are impossible. Like when we're basically held captive to the variability of an existing old system that isn't mutable, then are we really? What is that even? I don't know what it's for. Maybe to impose limitations. It's still going to get digitized anyways, and we can completely replicate every little bit of it. It's not a convenience thing. It's definitely about, oh yeah, I did it this. I used a hand blender that was cranked with a giant flywheel, and I had a donkey running a wheel outside to power it. But I think that's also that's the culture. Some people really get down on that stuff. Some people really get into I don't know, not just the details. It's like not just like making the sausage, but like grinding it. It's not enough to make the music. They want to make they want sound design to be like a part of the entire process, and it should be to some extent. Um, but I think most of the coolest stuff is conceptually driven. It's not the product of like, let's drive this thing into the ground. At least not the whole thing. I mean, I'm sure that there are examples of like music where somebody just, you know, turned up all the way and fried shit. But I can't think of very many people that I've ever known, like audio engineers, who would just let somebody like burn out the channel of their console, fry their preamp, or you know, scream so loudly into the microphone that the condenser itself no longer functions properly again. I've seen plenty of live performances where somebody was screaming into a dynamic mic, and then the thing was always just grainy afterwards. It broke the diaphragm or something. Usually, the few times that I've seen an like a guitar amplifier fail, it meant that was like the end. Because most of the time that doesn't happen to like bands with like, you know, extensive backline and replacement equipment. It's almost always at a small show, and something happens and it's like, oh, sorry guys, we don't have a backup for this. And or they borrow the next band's gear if everyone's real cool. But even then, like,
Right, but again, you don't want to loan your gear to somebody who just blew a fuse in their amp.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's that's one of those things, like it brings all sorts of other concerns to the table. Hey, wait a second, what the hell were they doing?
well, and when I first started DJing, I didn't really understand the sound guys' frustrations when people would like redline their shit. I never really was like redlining everything because when you can't hear it, then it just sounds like fucking mud. And
Yeah, sand.
yeah, it's like I realized that early on enough that I never mixed in the red as far as I knew. Um,
Oh, I think it's real easy to tell it anymore,
oh
especially
yeah,
because of all the
yeah,
digital
yeah.
systems. It sounds like a blizzard of staples on a tin roof, and it's just horrible. And it's not like bit crushing, which can be used tastefully. It's like the sound of sand, or just like I said, a blizzard of staples on a tin roof. It's just horrible. And when it happens, it happens so fast. Yeah, and there are some like there's some high end mixers that have analog stages where they can handle like big or higher voltage output, and they're designed for those things. But those things even still have a limit. And I started recording stuff onto like cassette tapes when I was 13, and if somebody had told me that I'd have to like calculate voltages so that I can ensure that I was getting the best signal to noise ratio because different devices have different qualities of output, and that I would be concerned about really just nobody cares about slew rates. But for some reason, I learned about that stuff because, of course, I was going to design electronics. I think there are a lot of things that we get wrapped up in that aren't important. And on some level, like having access to the sum total of human intellect and knowledge is useless without proper guidance. Like, so what if I could find out about how some really archaic system works if I'm not being, given the proper guidance to fully understand why it existed or how it was used and what's replaced it and why we do different things now? All of a sudden, I've just got this like extended knowledge about something that's just essentially useless.
Right. I still haven't seen anything useful being created with it.
I think that's the point. Like, there's no point in in handing over like building software or even the internet or to an agentic system if we don't know why it's there, what it's actually doing. I can't think of any programmer who would just hand over the keys and say, "Go ahead and do some stuff that I don't understand yet," because that's what's on the horizon is software being written in a language that we don't even understand. It already happened once with Facebook and their chatbot started speaking its own language.
I mean, and there's an assumption that it was actually communicating and not just spouting gibberish.
Oh, that too.
You know what I mean? Which is also like a false assumption. Just because there's exchange of information happening doesn't mean actual communications taking place. Especially if a human can't translate it, that's like fucking confirmation bias in action right there.
Yeah, no, that's true.